Story: the mailman never rings for them. I noticed the new neighbors the same day I found the envelope. No moving truck, no introductions. Just a plain white sedan parked in the driveway of the long empty house across the street. The windows stayed closed, curtains drawn. But each morning after, a single envelope appeared in their mailbox. Always the same. Off-white, no stamp, no return address, just a name in elegant black ink. For the occupant. At first, I didn't think much of it. People get mail? That's what mailmen do. But that's the thing. No one delivered it. Our regular mailman, Dennis, always came around noon. I'd seen him every day for the past 3 years. Friendly wave, same blue cap. But none of us ever saw him stop at that house. Not once. And yet, each morning same envelope. Same spot. The fourth morning, I woke early just after 5 a.m. and stood by the window, waiting. At 5:17, a man appeared at their mailbox. Not Dennis. He wore a faded postal jacket, but it looked wrong, like something copied from memory, slightly off. No insignia. The bag on his shoulder sagged as if it were too heavy with something wet. He moved stiffly, mechanically, placed the envelope inside, turned, and looked directly at my window. I dropped behind the curtain so fast I scraped my knuckles on the sill. When I looked again, he was gone. But the envelope remained. That night, I had a dream. I was standing in my front yard, staring at their mailbox. Something moved inside it from within, pressing against the metal from the inside out. A wet, stretching sound. Then a hand burst through the slot, holding a letter addressed to me. I woke up gasping. There was a knock at my door. Soft. 3 times. But when I opened it, no one there. Just an envelope, resting on the mat. The envelope on my doormat was identical to the ones I'd seen in the neighbor's mailbox. Thick paper, no stamp, no markings on the back. Just my name, handwritten in the same looping ink. To the Observer. I didn't open it. Not at first. I left it on the kitchen table and made coffee with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. The air in my house felt different, thicker, like the pressure dropped suddenly. Like before a thunderstorm. By noon, I couldn't take it anymore. I slit the envelope open with a butter knife and slid out a single folded page. It was blank. Until I blinked. Then words appeared, faint gray lines, like they were surfacing through the paper, as if the letter had to decide whether or not I was allowed to read it. The message was short. You saw him. Now you belong to the route. Stay home tomorrow, or be delivered. I read it 3 times, barely breathing. That night, the lights in my house dimmed on their own. The power didn't go out, the switches still worked, but everything felt distant, muted. My voice echoed faintly in my own ears when I spoke aloud, like I was already in a larger, emptier room. At 5:17 a.m., I couldn't help myself. I looked out the window. He was there again, the not mailman, placing another envelope into their box. But this time, he didn't walk away. He turned, slowly, and walked toward my driveway. Each step was heavy, precise, like he was walking through mud. Or like he'd never had to pretend to be human before. His face wasn't blurry, but I couldn't remember it afterward. Like my brain erased it on contact. He walked all the way up to my mailbox, paused, reached into his bag, and pulled out a mirror. Not a letter, just a small, square mirror with a cracked corner. He slid it into the slot and turned his head toward me. I ducked instantly, hiding behind the curtain, heart pounding in my throat. 5 minutes passed. 10. Silence. I opened the front door just a crack. The street was empty. Still dark. I walked to the mailbox in my bare feet, breath fogging in the cold morning air. Inside was the mirror, and scrawled on the back in the same black ink, "Your next day delivery." I didn't bring the mirror into the house. I left it in the mailbox, shut the lid, and locked my front door. Not that a lock mattered not against him, not against whatever this was, but I had to believe it did. I barely slept. When I did, My dreams were full of corridors that twisted into post office boxes, each one stretching deeper and darker than the last. Every box had my name on it. Everyone opened on its own. Something inside was breathing. The next morning, I found the mirror again. This time, it was inside my house, lying face up on my kitchen table, and this time, it wasn't cracked. It reflected the room perfectly, except for one thing. In the mirror, there was a man standing behind me, just out of frame, not moving, not breathing, just there. I turned. No one. But when I looked back into the mirror, he was closer. Now directly behind me, head tilted, mouth slightly open like he was about to whisper. I slammed the mirror face down, but it didn't shatter. The surface rippled slightly, like water. I left the house. I drove around town for hours. Called Dennis, our real mailman. No answer. Called the post office. They said he'd been out sick for 4 days. When I asked if anyone else was filling in for this street, the woman on the line went quiet. "Sir, we don't deliver to that house anymore," she finally said. "I'm sorry? That address was removed from our route years ago. It's not in our system." I hung up. By the time I got home, the mirror was back in the mailbox again now, with a second envelope tucked beneath it. This one was thicker, heavier. Inside was a small, yellowed manifest, like a shipping receipt. Sender: the Walker recipient. My name. Weight. Variable contents. 1 soul. Observed. Instructions: leave in transit until claimed by void. Underneath it, handwritten: please remain indoors between 5, 0, and 6. 0 a.m. The mail doesn't like to chase. That night, I locked every door, covered the windows, smashed the mirror with a hammer, then burned the remains in the sink. At exactly 5:17 a.m., I heard a heavy thump at my door. Not a knock, a drop, like something had been left. I waited until daylight. When I finally opened the door, an envelope was waiting on the mat. No name, no return address, but the paper was wet with blood, and sealed with a human tooth embedded in wax. I didn't want to open it. God knows I tried not to. But that envelope sat there on my coffee table all day, pulsing in my peripheral vision like a wound I couldn't ignore. I tried to ignore it. Tried music, TV, cleaning. But no matter where I moved in the room, I could always see I toss if the paper itself followed my gaze. By sundown, the wax seal had begun to crack. The tooth inside twitched once. That's when I knew if I didn't open it, it would open me. So I put on gloves, tongs, every layer of separation I could manage. Still didn't help. As soon as I peeled back the edge, a noise escaped. Not paper, not tearing. It was a soft, wet exhale, like someone had been holding their breath for too long. Inside wasn't a letter, it was a photo of my house, taken from above, from directly overhead. In the image, I could see myself, standing in the backyard, staring up at the sky. But I'd never been there, never posed for that photo. Then I noticed the second version of me, a shadow behind my left shoulder. A figure just like me, half transparent, mirroring my posture, head tilted. Its mouth was open. Behind the photo, folded tightly, was another page. I unfolded it. Delivered. Your place has been exchanged. Please await removal. The lights flickered, the floor groaned, and upstairs, I heard the front door open even though I was still inside. I grabbed the nearest objective kitchen knife and crept toward the stairs. I didn't even make it halfway up before I saw something coming down. Step by step, bare feet, legs like mine. Same build, same scar on the left shin. But its skin looked stretched, like it had been reattached incorrectly. Its smile was too wide, too flat, and its eyes didn't blink. It held something in its hand, a letter, already open. And as it passed me on the stairs, never breaking eye contact, it slipped the envelope into my coat pocket, then kept walking. Out the door. Gone. I stood there, frozen. I pulled the letter from my pocket. It was blank. Until I blinked. Then it filled with one line, "Thank you for replacing yourself." I didn't leave the house the next day. Not because I was scared, though I was, but because I wasn't sure if I was allowed to. After that thing walked past me, wearing my skin, my walk, my scar, I couldn't tell if I was the original anymore, or just a forwarded copy. That night, at 5:17 a.m., the mailman came again. I didn't watch this time. I felt him, like the pressure in the house dropped, like the air took on weight. Every surface in the room leaned slightly toward the front door, like the walls were being pulled in his direction. When I opened my eyes, there was another envelope, sitting at the foot of my bed. I didn't touch it. I burned it. It screamed. Not loud low like a breath in the back of my skull, but it screamed, curled as it blackened. The seal bled. Real blood. Not wax, thick and clotted. When I swept up the ashes, they rearranged themselves across the floor into one word: rerouted. The next day, my neighbors stopped waving at me. The woman across the street, Mrs. Patel, clutched her kid a little tighter when I passed. My reflection in her car window smiled, even though I didn't. And Dennis, the real mailman? He finally came back. I ran out to greet him. He looked at me like I was a stranger. "You still live here?" he asked, eyebrows furrowed. "Yeah, why?" He hesitated. "I've been delivering letters here all week. Thought someone new moved in." "Where?" I asked. He pointed at my house. I swallowed. "Have you seen who?" He shook his head. "No." But the door's always unlocked. Mail's always gone the next day. He handed me my mail. Normal stuff bills, junk, a grocery flyer. At the very bottom, one envelope, no stamp, no name. Just return to sender. Back home, I laid it on the table and didn't touch it. The mirror across the room caught movement. I looked. It was me, sitting at the table. Only, I wasn't blinking. And in the reflection, my hands were already opening the envelope. I turned away from the mirror. I had to, because the version of me inside it calm, still, eyes open just a little too wide, was already ahead of me. Already unfolding the envelope, already reading words I hadn't seen. And as he read, his mouth moved, but not with my voice. He was delivering something. The envelope on my table began to unfold itself, not like paper, like skin. Thin, damp, pale as birth sheets. It peeled back layer after layer until it revealed a tongue, lying there. Still, with my name carved into it, over and over. Dozens of times in handwriting I recognized. Mine. From outside I heard the low rumble of wheels. Mail cart. But it wasn't Dennis. I walked to the window. The street was empty, except for a procession of identical figures in postal coats, all walking in silence. Each one dragging a sack of letters behind them, the bags twitching as if something inside was still moving. One of them turned its head sharply. It was me, a me without eyes, sockets packed with folded notes. He raised his hand and waved. The lights in my house died one by one. I stepped back from the window and stepped on something soft. A mailbag, sitting in the hallway, tied shut, moving. I cut the string. Inside, dozens of letters, all addressed to current resident. Each one pulsed faintly, like they were breathing. One slid from the pile and unfolded midair, its message unfurling like a command. "You have been successfully relocated. Your soul will arrive in 3-5 business days." The walls around me groaned. The air turned sharp, and the door behind me opened from the inside. A figure stepped out. It was wearing my skin, but smiling with someone else's mouth. Its breath smelled like ink and rotting stamps. It reached into its bag and handed me a final envelope. I opened it without looking. "Thank you for choosing this address. You are now part of the route. Missed deliveries will be punished." I looked in the mirror. There was no reflection anymore, just an empty hallway, waiting for mail. Story 2. The package wasn't for me. The first package arrived on a Tuesday. I didn't order anything. No return label, no shipping info. Just a plain brown box sitting on my porch, sealed tight with yellowed tape. My name wasn't on it. Instead, the label read, "To whom it will soon concern." It wasn't from Amazon. It wasn't from anyone. I live alone, I work from home, I don't do impulse buys. I hadn't even added anything to a cart in weeks, so I figured it was a delivery mistake. Maybe something for a neighbor wrong house, wrong porch. I picked it up. It was warm. I mean body temperature warm. Like someone had just been holding it close, and the bottom of the box was slightly damp, leaving a dark crescent shape on the welcome mat. I didn't bring it inside, just left it by the door and went back in, locking up behind me. A couple hours later, it was gone. No truck, no knock, no footsteps, just gone. I figured, all right, mix-up fixed itself. But the next day, it was back. Same size, same damn tape. Only this time the label said, "For the one watching the porch." I checked my ring cam. No alerts, no recordings. I checked with the neighbors. No one saw a truck. No one got a similar delivery. That night, I brought the box inside, just for a second, just to check. It smelled wrong. Not rot, not mildew, something familiar in a terrible way. Like warm copper and rain-soaked paper. I cut it open. Inside was a single object, wrapped in black cloth. I peeled it back carefully. It was a photo frame. Old, heavy, ornate silver edges. But the photo inside, it was me. Taken from across the street, standing in my own living room window. Looking out, looking directly into the camera. Only I'd never stood there. Never wore that exact shirt. And in the photo, my face wasn't quite right. The eyes were glassy. The mouth was open. And behind me, in the reflection of the room, stood someone else, watching. I didn't sleep that night. I stared at the photograph for hours, searching for proof it was fake, some digital trick, a coincidence, a weird gift. But the details were too perfect. The chipped paint on the windowsill, the coffee mug I'd left beside the plant, even the cut on my lip I got 3 days ago from biting too hard. The only thing wrong was me. I looked like a wax figure caught mid-melt, like I'd been sculpted from memory, or worse, from something watching through the walls. I threw the photo away. The box, too. But the next morning, there were 2 packages. Same brown paper, same yellowed tape. No labels this time, just scratches across the cardboard. Marks that looked like symbols, or maybe just the dragging of something with nails. I didn't touch them, just watched through the peephole for hours. But no one came. Nothing moved. The shadows around the boxes just got darker, as if they were soaking up light. At 3:11 a.m., I heard tape peeling. I grabbed a flashlight and crept to the door. One of the boxes had been opened from the inside. The flaps were torn outward, as if whatever was inside had let itself out. I called the police. When they arrived, the packages were gone. One of the officers asked if I'd been drinking. The other looked at me like I was sleepwalking. They took a report, shrugged, and left me alone in the dark with the sound of cardboard flexing echoing in my ears. That afternoon, a 3rd package arrived. This one had no top, just an open box sitting on my porch. Inside, a recording device. Old, cassette style, already playing. I stepped closer. The voice was mine. "You shouldn't have opened the first one. Now every piece knows where you live." Then static. Then another voice, and all mine. "Item located. Preparing final delivery." The tape ejected itself. I reached for it, hands shaking. But before I could grab it, something scratched the inside of the box. Once, twice, 3 times. Like it didn't realize I was standing right there. I pushed the box off the porch with my boot and slammed the door. Didn't look back. Didn't listen to the way it thumped once as it landed, or how it seemed to shift as it hit the ground. I sat in the hallway for hours, knife in hand, staring at the door. No one knocked, but I heard the creak of cardboard. Heard something dragging itself down the steps. By morning, it was gone. But the house wasn't right anymore. There was a new door in the hallway, between the kitchen and the guest room. One I'd never seen, no knob, no hinges. Just a rectangle of wood and frame like it had always belonged there. I touched it. It was cold and slightly soft, like pressing your hand against something dead that hasn't realized it yet. Later that day, another package arrived. It was already inside the house, sitting neatly in the hallway, right under the new door. This one had my full name, spelled correctly, middle initial included, no mistakes. The label said, "Final assembly required. Please open with care. You are almost ready." I opened it. Inside was a hand. My hand. I know that sounds insane, but I recognized it. The faded scar on the thumb, the way the pinky bends wrong from a break years ago. It was cold, waxy, but too real to be fake. No blood, just detached, preserved. Beneath it was a note. "This one didn't fit, but we've adjusted the measurements. Thank you for your patience." Estimated time of arrival, 3 nights. That night, I boarded the house shut, hammered every window, piled furniture in front of every door. But I couldn't stop the sound. It started in the walls. A slow shifting, the drag of something too large to belong in this world squeezing between beams. Then came the tape, peeling, stretching, and breathing. That new door in the hallway? It had begun to open, not all at once, just a slow, steady inch. And from the darkness behind it, something whispered in my voice, "We're almost done building you." I blocked the new door with everything I had, dresser, chairs, fridge, anything heavy enough to make it stop opening. But the pressure on the other side didn't push back like something trying to force its way in. It waited. Patience. Like a delivery, waiting to be signed for. The hand from the last box lay on the floor beside me. Fingers twitching now, not randomly searching. One digit turned toward the door, another began to drum rhythmically. Like it knew the time was getting close. I threw it into the fireplace. The flames crackled blue. The hand screamed not with a voice, but through my head, like biting foil with your brain. The next morning, 3 new packages waited inside. I never saw them arrive, just heard the faint sound of cardboard being folded from the inside out. Each box was addressed to unit, recipient, type, reassembly, status, fragmented, restored. I opened the first box. Inside, a spine. Curved, familiar, still slick. Wrapped in packing foam soaked through with something black and warm. A tag was stapled to one vertebra. Used to bend under pressure, replaced with reinforced compliance. Second box. A mouth. But not mine anymore. It smiled before I even touched it. It had more teeth than memory. The third box was empty until I leaned over. Then something inside it opened its eyes. I ran. Upstairs. Locked the bedroom door. I tried calling for help. No signal. Every contact in my phone now read, "Pending delivery." At 3:11 a.m., the power went out. From down the hall, I heard the soft sliding of cardboard over carpet. Something was moving, dragging itself, scraping its way down the hallway like a box that had learned to crawl. I pressed my ear to the door. Nothing. Then tape tearing, flesh stretching, breathing through cardboard. A voice whispered from just behind the wall. "It's okay. You're almost done. The pieces are fitting now." I looked in the mirror, and for the first time in days, I didn't recognize my own face. I covered every mirror in the house, not because I was scared of what I'd see, but because I was scared I'd see someone else smiling back. The face in the glass wasn't mine anymore. It had my shape, yes, me bones, my scars, my crooked grin, but it moved without me. It blinked when I didn't. It mouthed things I hadn't said, and its eyes were always looking past the reflection. The packages stopped arriving, but the boxes didn't stop moving. At night, I heard them shifting inside the walls, sliding softly across the attic floor. Sometimes whispering in tape and cardboard, like the flaps were mouths without tongues, rehearsing a voice they didn't quite have yet. Then one night, the door I'd barricaded simply wasn't there anymore. Not torn off, not broken, just replaced. In its place stood a tall sealed box, standing upright, human-shaped, labeled only with Final product. Verified match. Please unwrap gently. I didn't touch it. But it opened anyway. Not with a sound, just the sudden awareness that it was no longer shut. And from inside stepped me. Fully assembled. Naked. Breathing. But wrong. Too clean. Too smooth. Like a mannequin had been sculpted from my memories and then forgotten just enough. It looked at me. Not angry, not hostile, just curious. Like a child seeing its own reflection for the first time. Then it spoke in my voice. You can rest now. I'll keep things going. It's easier this way. I backed away. It stepped forward. Every light in the room flickered in sync with its heartbeats. It had one. I could hear it in the walls. Thump, thump, thump. Rhythmic, confident, not mine anymore. It reached out a hand, familiar, burn scar on the wrist, same broken pinky, but warmer than mine had ever felt. You've already been delivered, it whispered. I'm just the signature. I should have run, but the moment it spoke those words, I'm just the signature, something deep inside me gave up. Not from fear, from recognition. Because it wasn't copying me. It was finishing me. It had come from the part of me I ignored. The part that whispered at 3 a.m. The part that stared too long into screens, into mirrors, into windows. The part that wanted out. The other me stepped closer. I didn't move. It placed its hand on my chest. And everything slowed down. My breathing, my pulse, even the ticking of the old kitchen clock in the next room went silent. A shimmer passed through the air between us like heat haze in reverse, cold and sharp. And when it was gone, I could see myself from the outside. Standing, breathing, alive. But the me inside, I was somewhere else. Somewhere with no walls, no time, just endless shelves, stacked with boxes. Each one beating softly like hearts, each one whispering with familiar voices, all waiting for delivery. In that vast dark place, I saw things. A woman curled inside a mailing tube, her face pressed to the plastic like a fetus waiting to be reborn. A child stitched into an envelope, blinking through a slit. A mailman with no mouth, only a hollow mask and a bag filled with writhing limbs. Each time something was taken, another version stepped forward to take its place. And now, I was in the bag. Folded neatly, addressed, tagged, owner. Discontinued replacement, active tracking, not required. Somewhere far away, my body smiled, signed the form, and stepped outside to greet the world, as if it had always been me. Story 3. He only delivers at night. The first delivery came at 2:39 a.m. I hadn't ordered anything. I was half asleep on the couch, TV still on mute, the glare of late-night reruns flickering across the ceiling. The knock on the door was soft, almost polite. 3 taps, evenly spaced, too quiet for any real urgency. I sat up, confused, stumbled to the door and looked through the peephole. A man in a dark delivery uniform stood on my porch. No visible company logo, just a black ball cap and a square cardboard takeout bag in hand. I opened the door an inch. Wrong house? The man didn't look up. He raised the bag with both hands and said, in a low, flat voice, "Your order has arrived." There was no receipt stapled to the front, no branding, just a handwritten note taped to the top. "Thank you for feeding it." Before I could speak, he turned and walked away. No car, no sound of footsteps. He was just gone. I stepped out onto the porch. Empty street, no headlights, no breeze, just the smell of hot, damp cardboard and something that made my throat tighten. Salt, metal, sweetness. I brought the bag inside. Why? I don't know. Curiosity? Stupidity? Something deeper. Inside was a single black plastic food container, tightly sealed. I opened the lid. The contents looked like food, sort of. Steam rose in thick, white curls. But the smell wasn't quite right. The color was too dark, the texture too slick. and underneath the lid was another note. Don't eat until it watches you. I threw it out, straight into the outside bin, double-bagged it, slammed the lid, tried to forget about it. But when I woke the next morning, the container was back, on my kitchen table, and it was open. I stood in my kitchen for a long time, just staring at the open container. I hadn't touched it. I hadn't brought it back in. But there it was. Steam still rose from the black plastic tray, curling unnaturally slow in the still morning air. The food inside hadn't cooled. In fact, when I leaned in slightly, I could feel heat pulsing from it, like a living thing, like breath. The contents had changed. It no longer resembled any kind of meal. The surface was shiny, gelatinous, faintly quivering. Something inside was moving slow, rhythmic, like a heartbeat. And in the steam, I could swear I saw shapes, not faces, not fully, just impressions. Eyes that blinked in fog, lips mouthing words I couldn't hear, fingers tapping softly from the inside of the lid. I threw it out again. This time I put it in the freezer first, wrapped in towels, taped shut, then carried it 3 blocks away to a public dumpster. When I came back home, my front door was unlocked. Nothing was taken, except my appetite. I made eggs, toast, ate nothing. Everything tasted like plastic and ash, like something had deadened my tongue. That night, I locked everything, triple-checked every door, every window, slept with a knife next to the bed. 2:39 a.m. 3 taps. This time, I didn't move. I didn't look, but something slid under my door. I turned on the light. It was a menu. A single sheet of matte black cardstock, printed in deep red ink. Tonight's delivery first course. Recognition main course. Surrender dessert. Echo. You don't have to eat it. Just open your mouth. On the back, a note in the same handwriting as the first night. The longer you wait, the hungrier it gets. You don't have to chew. Just let it in. I burned the paper. I didn't sleep. The next morning, the food container was on my pillow. Still warm, still beating. And now, there was a single long black hair pressed into the lid. It wasn't mine. I stopped leaving the house. Every time I tried, I'd find something waiting at the threshold of fresh container, a new menu, a single bite already missing. Once I opened the door and found a plastic fork jammed into the wood at eye level. Bent, wet. The next night I tried boarding the place up. Nailed shut the windows, stacked furniture in front of the doors. Didn't matter. 2:39 a.m. came anyway. 3 taps. Always the same. But this time, they came from the inside. I stood frozen in the hallway as the knock echoed from the back of the pantry door small, soft and unmistakably polite. I didn't answer. I didn't move. Then came the sound of chewing. Wet. Slow. From behind the thin wooden door, something was eating. The next morning, I found the pantry shelves cleared out. All my food gone. Every box, every can. In their place were a dozen black containers, neatly stacked, numbered, each labeled for when you give in. That day, I tried to call someone. Police, family, anyone. My phone was dead. When I plugged it in, the screen lit up with a single notification. Your order is en route. I smashed it. That night, I covered all the mirrors, all the screens, because I'd started seeing him in them. The delivery man, standing motionless on my porch, never blinking, never knocking, but always closer. Sometimes I'd see him reflected inside my own house. Not in real space, just in reflections. Waiting in corners that didn't exist. Watching from screens that weren't turned on. That night, I found a final note taped to my bedroom ceiling. It only delivers what you already crave. If you don't eat, something else will. You've been starving for years. Below it, taped to the wall, was a receipt. Total. 1 balance, paid tip, your name. I stopped leaving the house. Every time I tried, I find something waiting at the threshold, a fresh container, a new menu, a single bite already missing. Once, I opened the door and found a plastic fork jammed into the wood at eye level. Bent, wet. The next night, I tried boarding the place up. Nailed shut the windows, stacked furniture in front of the doors. Didn't matter. 2:39 a.m. came anyway. 3 taps. Always the same. But this time, they came from the inside. I stood frozen in the hallway as the knock echoed from the back of the pantry door, small, soft, and unmistakably polite. I didn't answer. I didn't move. Then came the sound of chewing, wet, slow. From behind the thin wooden door, something was eating. The next morning, I found the pantry shelves cleared out. All my food gone. Every box, every can. In their place were a dozen black containers, neatly stacked, numbered, ich labelet, for when you give in. That day, I tried to call someone. Police, family, anyone. My phone was dead. When I plugged it in, the screen lit up with a single notification. Your order is en route. I smashed it. That night, I covered all the mirrors, all the screens, because I'd started seeing him in them. The delivery man, standing motionless on my porch, never blinking, never knocking, but always closer. Sometimes I'd see him reflected inside my own house. Not in real space, just in reflections. Waiting in corners that didn't exist. Watching from screens that weren't turned on. That night, I found a final note taped to my bedroom ceiling. It only delivers what you already crave. If you don't eat, something else will. You've been starving for years. Below it, taped to the wall, was a receipt. Total, 1 balance. Paid tip. Your name. I woke up chewing. Not food. Not anything I recognized. My mouth was full of something cold and soft, like steamed cloth soaked in salt water. I spat it onto the sheets in the dark. It wriggled once, then stopped moving. When I turned on the light, there was nothing there. But the taste stayed. Deep, lingering, like skin boiled clean. The next delivery didn't knock. It arrived inside me. I started to feel full all the time. Not bloated, not ill, just full. Like I'd eaten something massive and forgotten doing it. Sometimes, when I pressed my hand against my stomach, I could feel movement, pulses, shifts. I stopped checking the front door. Didn't matter anymore. The house had become part of the delivery system. The containers now appeared on the shelves, on the toilet tank, inside the refrigerator that no longer ran. Each one held something different. Some had hair, some had fingernails. One had a tooth with a tiny message carved into the root, chew. Eventually I caved. I opened one. Just one. The smell was overwhelming, but not disgusting. Not anymore. It smelled like things I hadn't smelled in years. Rain on warm pavement. My mother's cooking. The inside of someone's shirt I once loved. The food inside was shaped like memory. And when I ate it, just one bite, I remembered things I never lived. A hallway that wasn't mine. A dinner I never sat at. A laugh I'd never made. Then I blacked out. I woke hours later on the kitchen floor. 10 containers surrounded me. Empty. Licked clean. My jaw hurt. My fingernails were broken. There was a message written on the floor in grease. You're feeding it well now, but it's still hungry. You'll need guests. I started finding names in the deliveries, written in grease on the lids, scrawled on the folded napkins, sometimes engraved into the plastic like someone had scratched it with a broken fingernail. Not my name, not random, names I knew. My neighbor down the street, the girl I dated 5 years ago, my brother. Then their faces started showing up first, as photographs tucked under the lids, then as reflections in the silverware that came inside the bags. Smiling. Mouths slightly open. Waiting. One night, I opened a container and found a phone inside. It vibrated once. The screen lit up. Outgoing call, Mom. I didn't answer, but I heard her voice anyway, muffled, behind the walls. Honey, I'm coming over. I got your note. Something about a dinner? I screamed into the phone. Told her not to come. The line went dead. I ran outside, barefoot, down the street to intercept her. Her car wasn't there. Her number didn't exist in my phone anymore. Her contact photo was now a blank receipt icon labeled "In Transit." When I got back home, the table was set. For two. Black plates, polished forks, candlelight with no flame, just the faint glow of heatless fire curling like steam. And in the center of the table, a new container. Bigger than before, sealed in thick wax paper, tied with red twine. The tag read, "Tonight's special, a familiar taste." I didn't open it. I sat and listened. From inside the box came breathing, shallow, strained, like someone asleep, but dreaming of drowning. A knock at the door. 2:39 a.m. 3 times. Always 3. I didn't move, but the door opened anyway, and in stepped the delivery man. For the first time I saw his eyes. They were buttons, black, sewn in, but behind them, something moved. He didn't speak. He set down a second box, and then he looked at me, not with hunger, but with expectation, like a waiter waiting for the host to begin. Then he said softly, "We've fed you. Now you serve." The delivery man didn't move. He just stood there, in the doorway of my home, with 2 containers on the table and my life behind his sewn eyes. The air in the room changed. Not temperature texture, like the molecules rearranged into something thicker, slower. Every breath I took came back warmer, as if it had already passed through someone else. The candlelight dimmed. Not flickering, bowing. I looked at the 2 containers. One was labeled guest, the other host. I knew which one was mine, and I knew what was in the other. I opened mine first. It was empty, except for a single black napkin and a knife made of glass. Beneath the napkin, a message. A body is a house. Open yours. Let the hunger live there. The second container began to move, not shake, breathe. I could see the wax paper rising and falling. I reached out. The delivery man nodded once, as if to say, "Go on." I untied the twine, peeled back the paper. Inside was a person, still alive, eyes open, mouth sealed shut with something that pulsed gently with their heartbeat. They looked at me, not with fear, with recognition. It was someone I loved, or had once, or maybe never really knew but had dreamed of, long ago, with more feeling than memory. They mouthed something beneath the seal. "Feed it." The glass knife grew warm in my hand. The plate before me was clean. Waiting, and for the first time in weeks, I felt truly, deeply hungry. The delivery man stepped back into the darkness of the open door, not leaving, just making room. Behind him, I saw the truth. A kitchen without walls, 1,000 tables, 1,000 plates, and on each one, someone just like me. Some chewing, some crying, some already empty. I looked down at the knife, then at the person in the box, then at my own reflection in the polished fork which no longer matched my face. "Bon appetit," the voice whispered from somewhere beneath the floor. "You always were starving for something."